With so many changes to the retirement age, and with new rules and schemes coming in every year surrounding superannuation and retirement, it's getting harder and harder to understand when you should retire. So in this video, we're going to look at the average retirement age in Australia, how that's changed over time, and 5 tips for you to know when you're financially ready to hang up the boots. How do you know when to retire? Well, the first place to start is to talk about the Australian retirement age. And interestingly, there isn't one and there isn't a set retirement age at which you can retire. In fact, you could retire at any point that you wanted to. Interestingly, now this is data taken from the Australian Bureau of Statistics and also something from KPMG, their consulting firm. The average age that people say they intend to retire in Australia is 65.4. The average age of those who retired in the most recent year is around 64.8, so closely matching those. Interestingly, the average age that all current retirees retired was actually more like 56.9. So of all those retirees, many of them left the workforce well before a lot of the people that are seeking to retire and intending to retire now. Now, what's incredibly interesting about this is that the average age in each year of those people retiring, which could be 100,000, 200,000 people in any given year, has trended up significantly in the last 25 years. So in the year 2000, the average age of retirees was 54, and now it's 64.0, or very close to 65. And we're getting similar, more recent stories. Now, some of the challenges with the Australian Bureau of Statistics is the backward-looking nature. KPMG has put a lot of work into this and has identified 66.2 as the average retirement age for men and 64.8 as the average retirement age for women. Now, this hasn't done much apart from add more complexity and confusion into what the retirement age is. So let's talk about the fact that there are actually 3 retirement ages that are worth considering when you're seeking to retire in Australia. These are the age pension age, the preservation age, and there are 2 of those, and your actual preferred retirement age. Now, the first one we need to talk about is the age pension age. This is probably the most linked to retirement, an appropriate retirement age, because this is when you can get access to the Centrelink age pension. Now, this isn't available to everyone, but it is received by, to my understanding, a significant amount of the population. So the age pension age has been increasing in the last decade to now be 67 years of age, so beyond where traditionally people have retired. The other ages that are worth understanding are actually the ages at which you can get access to your superannuation. And there are actually 2 of these. So the first one, to access your superannuation, you need to meet a full condition of release. And one of those conditions of release is turning 65. So this is often seen as the main retirement age, and it kind of links to when people intend to retire and when people have retired in the last few years. But there is another one, and it's becoming more popular, which is if you cease any type of employment, and even you could potentially go back to work after you've made that decision, after the turning 60, you can then get that same condition of release and access your superannuation benefits. So there's 3 ages that are really relevant to retirees. In fact, as I was saying before, you can actually retire whenever you want. These rules are all about whether you can access your pension or your superannuation. So it's completely up to you, and it's all about personal choice, something that is very important when it comes to the superannuation industry in Australia. But I think the first key question we want to ask is about affordability. The big question when you should retire or when you can retire is whether you can afford it. Now, I've got some very simple data and calculations I've pulled from the Telstra Lifetime Income Calculator from the support of a group called SuperGuide as well. According to this analysis, a single person that needs $50,000 per year in income could retire with $400,000, and that would be enough. In the similar case, for a couple that needed $70,000 in income, they would only need $470,000 in assets to retire, assuming they took a fairly growth-oriented approach with their investments. And this increased significantly for those with $100,000, and we work with a lot of these people, that if you need $100,000 as a single person, you'll need an asset base of $1.7 million. And increasing that to $140,000 for a couple, you'll need $2.4 million in assets. Now, this is kind of at either end of what the ASFA, or the Association of Super Funds, says is a comfortable retirement. And that is around $73,000 for a couple and $51,000 for a single person. Now, again, these are very simple rules of thumb, but I think they provide some information about whether you can consider retirement and whether you're likely to be able to fund the retirement that you hope for, work for, and deserve. There's a few more personal things that come to it. We talk about this in our book, The Golden Years, which is that the retirement decision isn't just about money. That's something that can be sorted, explained, and you can make a very clear decision on that with information, particularly if you're visiting a financial advisor. But there's more personal and there's a much more emotional period that many people give the benefit to. The second thing I want to talk about is the question of, have your priorities changed? Retirement is so much more personal than just being about financial matters. An advisor can answer those questions about how much you can afford, what level of income you get. They can model all kinds of outcomes for you. But you need to ask a number of questions yourself. Is work still your priority? Does it feel more like a chore than enjoyment? Are you feeling like you're missing out on travel or time with your family and your grandkids? Do you long for more time working on your hobbies? Do you want to start hiking? Do you want to do woodwork? There's all these other opportunities and all this time. If your mind is drifting and you're feeling sick of work, then this could be a sign that it's time to retire. And this continues to the second one, which is, how do you feel about work? So many people, and particularly young people, are told to pursue our passions. But for those retiring now, a lot of people have spent 20, 30, 40 years in the same profession. This becomes part of our lives. When you're thinking about retirement, an important consideration is how you feel about work. Are you in a field where you're doing life-changing things or feel life-changing that motivate you? Are you relied upon by other people? And does that give you a sense of belonging and the need and some enjoyment out of that? Or are you over it? Are you willing to sacrifice another year of enjoyable retirement for a work that you're not getting enjoyment from? I think the key here is that advice and keeping yourself informed can help you understand the trade-off, whether that's a financial trade-off, but the question is ultimately yours and whether it's time to hang up the boots. And another consideration here is, just because you're finishing work doesn't mean you can't take on another job, casual work or volunteer work, anything that becomes more beneficial to your emotional and health, essentially, in your retirement. And that links to the third area I want to talk about, which is health. In some cases, and in a positive way, a reducing amount of those people retiring, is that health is one of the biggest factors that matters when you're retiring. Are you still mobile and active? A big part of most people's retirement is the intention to travel, whether that's locally or overseas. So ensuring that you're retiring at a time when you're actually able to enjoy and be mobile and be active and be able to move around, I think is important. And it also needs to be your biggest priority during your golden years. Sometimes retirement can actually help you pivot towards taking care of your health more than is possible in the hustle bustle of work life. And I think the key here is only you will know when it's time to prioritize your health and your ability to travel, and making sure you pull the pin at the right time. And this is probably one of the most interesting and most challenging parts that we see. And in a lot of cases, we spend more time talking to people about what they're doing in retirement as opposed to just the investments and superannuation that they own. And that is, how do you actually feel about retiring? Are you scared? Are you confident you can fill up a week in retirement? Or are you afraid that it's going to be filled up by other people expecting things from you? You could be busier than you were before. Are you prepared for that? There's only so much golf or sailing or shopping or traveling you can do. So being emotionally prepared for retirement is the biggest key, and it is a massive shift. Could you step into retirement slowly? Is it possible to take long service leave and then step back in, or move your hours down? Or work from home, or increase your flexibility? There is still a huge need for mentoring and seniority and experienced support within a lot of businesses in Australia. So there may be options to be flexible. If you feel like you aren't ready to retire, that could be the only sign you need. And maybe it's more about finding more purpose in the work that you're doing. But our key here is mental health needs to be a big priority when you're retiring, as depression is quite common for those entering retirement, particularly in the early stages where they potentially lose that purpose. So having friendships is key, because work is part of our identity. So I think this is something that is incredibly important that people to focus on. Now, one thing that is worth discussing is that this alternative approach to retirement. And I've talked about that. I've touched on that slightly in other areas of this video. And that is we could call it old-fashioned, but the transition to retirement strategy. This is known as a TRIS, a TRIS, transition to retirement income stream, or a TTR, transition to retirement pension. There's a lot of different ways this is thought about, but basically, once you've turned 60 years of age, you can start accessing a portion of your super. That's between 4, if you're under 65, between 4 and 10% of your super, and you have the ability to start supplementing your employment income with tax-free superannuation income. What this could allow you to do is reduce your work, increase the income from your superannuation balance, and actually start enjoying some flexibility, start making some changes with your employment, and potentially starting that transition into retirement and seeing if you're ready. It can help you get comfortable with that retirement life. Now, if you're trying to get to retirement sooner, seeing a financial advisor can be very helpful, as they can get you to set up with a savings and investment strategy that can accelerate the process. Plus, they can help you calculate whether you've got enough to retire and also test multiple levels of income based on the value of assets that you have or could potentially have in the future. Now, as always, thanks again for listening. Please follow the page. Please give us a thumbs up and keep sending through those comments.